And move my record button around. All right. Kabi and Yemisi and I are here, and we're talking about a property that Kabi owns on Cyrville Road in Ottawa. And we've been looking at ways to add new revenues to this property for at least a couple of months now, if not longer, actually. And Yemisi, so one of the things that I really like as a business model, and I'll show you some pictures if I could find them. Just bear with me for a second. Yeah, here they are. So one of the things I really like, and I've done a lot of it myself, is adding small sheds or workshops to properties that I own. And just so you know, Yemisi, I have about just over 2,500 clients that I coach in the States and in Canada, a few overseas, but mostly in the United States and Canada. And a lot of my clients are really into this model as well. And what that means is, let's say you owned a duplex, and you could buy one of these, sheds or workshops, put it in the backyard, and rent it to one of your tenants. And I have a number of them, and I'll show you one that we are just finishing up on. I think I've got the pictures here as well, just so that you have a bit of background in this area. Yeah, here they are. So this is one of the sheds, and I think, Kabi, you've seen this before. This is one of the sheds that workshops that I bought from North Country Sheds in Smith Falls. It comes, you can sort of see it here. It comes on a flatbed trailer, and Yemisi, the trailer tilts like that, and they just slide the shed off the truck and put it on your property. And in terms of site preparation, is very simple. They actually don't want you to put it on concrete. They don't want you to put it on patio stones. They have runners. You can see the runners here, and they want you to put it on gravel. And the reason that they like to put it on gravel is, you keep it out of the muck, you keep it out of the wet, but gravel drains, right? So that if you think about it, if it's a concrete pad or patio stones, it retains water, and eventually the shed will rot. I have some of their sheds that are more than 40 years old. And when you first hear about just, dropping the shed on gravel, you think, oh my God, what's it going to look like in 5 years? But we've got at least a couple of sheds that are 40 years old, and they're still very serviceable, which is kind of cool. So this is how they deliver them. And then this is one of the sheds that we bought. And you can see there's an overhead door here. This is looking in to the outside. So this has an overhead door. It has a person door here. You can see it a little bit better. Here's the overhead door. There's the person door. It's got a window here. This one has a metal roof on it. Metal roofs will probably last at least 40 years. This is a shed this is not part of what I got. That's a Rubbermaid shed, which is separate, okay? So, and Yemisi, just so you know, in Ontario now, the maximum size you're allowed to have without a building permit on your site is 15 square meters. That's 161.5 square feet. So Yemisi, I'm going to give you one guess. Kabi already knows. How big do you think this workshop is?
20 square feet.
No, the maximum legal is 161.5 square feet. This one is just under that 160.
Okay, so is that with the permit or without the permit?
It doesn't require a permit.
Okay.
If it was bigger, if it was, say, 200 square feet or bigger, and certainly you could buy them bigger, you do need a building permit. All right. And we're not really keen on spending a few months working with the city to get a building permit for something that's 200 square feet, when 160 square feet is perfectly serviceable for a lot of small users. I mean, Amazon's not going to move in here.
I have a question though.
Sure.
So when I reached out to David about this, and again, I'm trying to get a lot of this on my property. He had mentioned something around, while there is no regulation, that says the number you can put in, that maybe the maximum the city would want is about 10 of these sheds.
Yeah, I mean, if you and I, Kabi, were to call a planner at the city of Ottawa, they wouldn't know. Yeah, there's, as far as I know, there's no bylaw on this. Having said that, cities and towns across North America will pass bylaws if they don't like something, right? So
True.
let's say you and I owned a property with Yemisi and we put 150 of them on a property and none of them had building permits. And a neighbor complained. Probably the city would say, oh, well, that's too many. We're going to limit it, right? But at least as far as I know, at the present time, there is no limit. The most important thing is not to upset your neighbors,
Okay, got it.
right? But
Thankfully for me, I
it
don't
is
have a lot of
possible.
neighbors.
I mean, there isn't anything that a city can see that they wouldn't want to regulate, right? So, I mean,
So
you know that.
another question though around this is Aaron's business model. Sorry, I just had a couple of questions
No,
that I
no, of
wanted to
course,
ask.
go ahead.
So Aaron's business model is around using kind of, finding that sweet spot, right? Bypassing the whole permit process. So what he does for his tiny homes is they are mobile homes, right? And all of that. So that was my question. These are also can be considered mobile because they are not affixed to the
Right,
ground.
right.
So for instance, if again, let's say the city were to come in and I said, well, they are mobile structures, is that an argument that I could use for this type of sheds too or not?
I think it is. What I do, because listen, I have lots of properties where, I have building permits and site plans and whatever else. But for small uses like this, to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars on legal fees and planning fees and survey fees and other kinds of studies, building permit fees, it just makes it knocks the model back. Instead of getting, anywhere from 14 or 15% return on investment, or maybe as much as 20%, it will reduce it, right?
Right.
Yes, my argument has been, because I've got them all, I got them all over the place in all kinds of my properties, right? Some industrial properties, some commercial properties. I've got them in behind, I've got a triplex, or I've got one of them in behind. And they're all 160 square feet. And I do argue, if, knock on wood, so far, so good, Cabby, I haven't had any of my neighbors complain. But if they do, I will say, number one, we meet the bylaw. It's not bigger than 161.5 square feet. And number two, exactly what you said. It's mobile. It's not a permanently affixed to the property, and it's a shed. I mean, think about this. When you drive down any street in Ottawa, for that matter, or Montreal, or any rural road in Quebec or in Ontario, or for that matter, North Dakota or Minnesota, how many sheds do you see on properties? You see them all over the North America. What they don't want is they don't want you to put a 4,000 square foot shed in your backyard without a building permit. And I understand that.
Okay.
All right, let me just show a couple more shots of this one. So this is the way it comes, Yemisi. It comes, what you can see now. This one here, Cabby, is 2x6 construction as opposed to 2x4, and it has a metal roof. So the metal roof, as I said, will probably last 40 years. And the 2x6 construction, I mean, even if we get a huge snowfall or sleet or rain, it's very strong. My sheds are all like this. And like I said, we've got some that are older than 40 years. And there's the person door. And on this one, Yemisi, there's a young woman who lives in this tiny house here. That's a house, believe it or not.
Okay.
And she has her side hustle in here, right? So she has her little gig, and then you'll see what we did with it. So this is me standing there inside this place. I should be on GQ, right, Cabby? And you can see. So what we do is we add electrical to it. You can sort of see we're starting here. We add obviously lighting. You can see LED lighting up here. Then we'll spray foam insulate it here and here. And when we buy them, by the way, they're spray foam insulated underneath. I don't know if we did that with North Country Shed. They have to apply the spray foam underneath, right?
Okay.
So we'll have to check that on the quote if they're doing that, because you can't do that yourself. But what you can do is you can spray foam this after you get it. So when you get it, they drop it on the gravel base. It's spray foamed underneath, so it's insulated. Then we add the electrical, then we spray foam it. And then what we do for some of the workshops is we do drywall them and we put in a floor, but not all of them. Some of the guys who are more industrial, they don't want the dry, we do obviously add electrical, we add, spray foam insulation, we add a reverse cycle heat pump, so we get both heat and cooling. But we don't do anything with the floor or the walls beyond that because they're going to be pretty rough with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So a question around that, if you go back to that question, to the previous screen.
I will in a second. I just wanted to make sure I show you what it looks like today. All right, before we get to your question. So this is the young woman there. She runs a business, Yemisi, which she makes beautiful clothing for fashion for women, mostly in the States. You can see here is the reverse cycle heat pump. Kabi, can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you can see the rails here for the overhead door. And we did put flooring in it and we did put drywall in it because she is a fashion designer and she needs that kind of finish. So you can sort of see what she's done with it. It's quite beautiful, really.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Sorry, do they have like a washroom attached to this or?
That is a great question. We do not put washrooms in them. We do not put any, water or cooking facilities. What we do is all of our workshops are associated with, as I said, industrial buildings or commercial buildings or existing residential buildings. And so you've got heat, you've got cooling, you've got lighting, you've got electrical. But if you have to go to the bathroom or you want to make a meal, you go to your apartment or you go to the main building. Right?
So I mean, I put out an ad, right? Kind of like the phantom ads. So one of the requests that came to me was the Cyrville property allows for me to run a car, what's it called now? A car sales, right? All this used car, sales.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I've had a couple of people that have reached out to me. They're interested. I have someone that's actually disturbing me now. He's willing to pay between $2,000 to $2,500 for a small office.
Yeah.
He doesn't mind it being 160 square feet, but due to regulations, he would need somewhere that has a washroom, for the office, and then he needs some space to, to park 10 or 20 cars.
Hey, listen, just stop there for a minute. This is really good news, Kabi.
Okay.
Look at this. I just made sure I understood the GM12 zone. So I just I know you know the zoning on this. Here's the GM12 subzone. What do you think it says?
Automobile dealership. Right.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. So, but my problem with this is how to get the, actually, let me see if I can find this message, how to get the washroom, attached to his unit, similar to Yemi's question.
Let's just go back to the map here. Just bear with me for another minute. So here is your property, right?
Right.
And I'll just move over here a little bit. Yemisi, isn't Google Maps fantastic?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Absolutely.
So Kabi, why can you not have a bunch of workshops on this property? And if they need to use the bathroom, can't they go into the main building?
They could. So the way that the washrooms are structured, I have four, I would say four, washrooms, right?
Yeah.
Two with the main restaurant, two, at the end. So that was supposed to service the kitchen. So yes, they could. But again, I don't know if that would meet the regulatory requirements for them having a car.
I think it does. I think that I mean, listen, I would defer to this guy, but I think it does. He is correct. You absolutely have to have a washroom. I mean, if I had a workshop there, or a small office there, that's terrific. great. But you know, I mean, if I'm there for 8 or 10 or 12 hours, I got to go to the bathroom once or twice, maybe,
Yeah.
right? Maybe even a young person like you, Cabby, has to go once or twice. So, so yes, he does need a bathroom. But what I do, and I'm going to just, I'll draw you a picture. What I do with a lot of my industrial buildings is, and Yemisi, I am an engineer, not an architect. So this is about the best
That's
I can
fine.
do. Okay, there's your building. Okay.
Mm.
And inside the building, you know, maybe we have a couple of bathrooms, right? Like that. All right. So this is this would be a typical industrial building or commercial building, whatever. And you know, you have a door here and a door here for the bathrooms. So typically, this would be a male bathroom and a female bathroom, right?
Right.
So what I do is I double load them. I put a door into the outside like this with a lock on it, obviously. And so if I had over here, if I had, I don't know, you know, one of these little workshops or offices, if he or she needed to go, they could go here. And so they don't have to come inside the building to use the facilities. They can get to the facilities from the outside.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It is super, super, super cheap, and people don't mind at all.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
All right, and all right, I got something else
Yeah.
I'll show you too. If that doesn't work, I have another solution. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I think it's here. Yeah, here it is. So I coach a group that runs a winery, and let me show you what they have done. So what I just showed you is the way I would resolve it. But this is a winery in Ottawa, which is a wedding center. So it's very high end. And what they do is they put bathrooms in. You know, you can get those porta potties. You know what porta potties are, right?
Yeah.
Yemisi, do you know what a porta potty is? They're really ugly, and nobody likes them. But what Jabulani, which is the winery that I talked about, did was they put these on their site so that when you go inside, they have composting toilets and they have water pumps so you can wash your hands afterwards. And they're very, very good toilets. They don't smell. It doesn't look like a porta potty.
Yeah.
And this is very cost effective. So if you had to have a bathroom somewhere, I would do something like this.
But Bruce, is something like this still, I mean, I'm just saying, do people still use this stuff? I mean, kind of looks like pretty old.
Well, what are you saying?
So I was saying, do people still use this kind of structures? I mean, this porta potty with this kind of like
All the
structures, I
time,
feel.
all the time, all the time. And look, I'm going to show you. I know you know a lot of ladies don't like them. I get that, but this is I get that. This is Jabulani Winery. They have a serious business. They make wine and they host weddings. We'll just look at some pictures here, and that's the way they run. I don't know if we'll see it. That's the way they run their wedding center. So there's the main building. The building is beautiful. I mean, look at that. But they have extra bathrooms and they are spread around the property and they're all based on composting toilets. So I do think it's usable. If they can do it for weddings, which are very sensitive to things, you know, Yemisi, I think you can
Yeah.
also do it for industrial users. Like most of the industrial users they're great people. They pay their bills. They don't complain. If they have to use a composting toilet, they will do it.
Okay.
That's my experience.
Okay.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
But if you have a couple of bathrooms or at least one bathroom that you could access from the outside by adding a door, that would be, Yemisi, that would be my preferred solution.
All right. That's fair enough.
All right.
Yeah. Thank
But,
you.
you know, look, my job is to raise possibilities. And, you know, if you have an infinite amount of money and you have an infinite amount of time, then you can do whatever you like. You can build giant warehouses, you know, you could build beautiful facilities, you could go through the site plan process, you could go through the building permit process. It takes years, it costs a lot of money. Yemisi, I am a development manager for
Mhm.
5,400 square foot new veterinary clinic in Canada. So there's a client of mine and I've helped him out, you know, I do some coaching and some development management work. How long do you think it took us to get site plan approval for a one-story, 5,400 square foot clinic to be built in Canada? How many months or years do you think it took us to get through the City of Ottawa's planning process?
Tell me.
3 years. I think I've heard that story, something like
I think
that.
you have, but I want to make sure that Yemisi understands it. It's 3.5 years.
Wow.
And my client has spent over $300,000 on studies.
Wow.
Okay. And we've spent 3.5 years. We finally got site plan approval, but it took 3.5 years. Now, he still has to build the clinic, right? He hasn't built the thing yet, and that's going to be another $2 million. Wait a second. In addition to that, the city is going to charge him development charges on his new building and a building permit fee, which will probably cost him another $200,000. So if my good friend here, Cabby, said to me, look, I have $500,000 of extra cash I'd like to spend on a site plan and fees, I'm good with that. Let's do that.
I don't.
But I don't. He's not he's not volunteering to do it, and I don't blame him. You know, so you know, you got to remember, I own a bunch of properties myself, and I do this for myself because, look, I built bigger buildings. I built the Canadian Tire Center, right, which is an arena for 20,000 people. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It took 5.5 years to get through the planning process for that. Okay. And we spent millions of dollars on that, millions of on the planning, you know, on lawyer fees and studies, and it was really, really complicated. So, and I'm too old, Yemisi, to want to do more of those things. All right.
Yeah.
So what I think is the economics of this require going under the market as opposed to at that level. That's my opinion. And I think Cabby agrees with me, but Cabby, you should chip in here. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's beating the red tape, right? Saves you time, it saves you money, you know, and you're still able to achieve your objective, right? Maybe if it's like in my case, I'm trying to get my valuation up for my property. If I had to go through site plan approval, there's no way I would be able to do that with the constraints I have. So, you know, finding a way to go under the market, you know, bypassing all the red tape. And that was why I was asking the question earlier, right? Or Bruce, well, you know, what strategy, if we consider this as mobile homes, you know, looking at the regulation and finding that sweet spot where you're not breaking it, you're bending it, maybe, but not breaking it.
Yeah, I don't really think though that you're breaking any laws here. I don't. I mean, you know, it's a bit of a gray area. I agree with that,
Yeah.
but I don't think you're and you're certainly not harming anybody.
True.
And you know, think, Yemisi, I'm going to show you this this one more website here. So this is the young woman. These are the clothes this young woman makes. She runs a company called proofcanada.ca. So that little workshop that I showed you, 160 square feet, she designs and manufactures, sells clothing, beautiful clothing, mind you, to fashion-forward women all over the place. Germany, United States, Australia. I mean, you name it, she sold it. And you know, in terms of, so you know, it's beautiful stuff that she designs. And you know, I mean, this is the stuff, right? I mean, it's fantastic, you know, for skinny ladies and for ladies less skinny, you know, all shapes and sizes, and they're form-fitting. And so, you know, look, I don't want to over stress it, Yemisi, but I think that if Cabby had 10 or 12 or I don't know how many, 20 of these things, and you had 20 entrepreneurs, you know, calling this place home, I
Yeah.
think that would be a good thing.
Mhm.
And I don't think he'd be hurting anybody.
No.
No, no.
And you know, I mean, I have, I don't know how many of these workshops I have now, but it must be at least 15 or 16. I should count them one day. And you know, there's these wonderful entrepreneurs. I'm sure I've got a couple of Nigerians in there too, by the way. I don't have to tell you
Yeah.
guys that Nigerians are entrepreneurial as heck, right?
True.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, you know, I always say, Yemisi, and I've got a couple of Haitians too. I got a Haitian artist in one of them. If you come from Haiti or you come from Nigeria, you're an entrepreneur because there's nobody gonna bail you out. If you can't support
No.
yourself and your family, you're screwed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, I had an argument with Habitat for Humanity a few years ago. You know, they provide housing for people, and they said a lot of people from other countries are not very entrepreneurial. I said, what are you talking about? Because
Mhm.
I know they're very entrepreneurial. And it took me a couple of years to convince Habitat for Humanity to add some workshops to their homes and add basement apartments and allow the people who use these homes to create new enterprises, and a lot of them did. Right.
Interesting.
So I think you're right, Cabby, that you are not doing anything wrong, and that if a neighbor complains and a bylaw officer shows up, you can say, no, we're just, we've got a few workshops and a few sheds, and that's what we're doing, and it's perfectly within the bylaw and the zoning.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about, for a moment, hang on a second, about this opportunity with the car dealership. Tell me more about it.
It's just I've not met the lad yet, but he looks very interested. You know, he came at me and said he needs a space for 10 to 20 cars.
Wow.
I've had a lot of people that are interested. You know, again, I've put out a couple of ads. So he needs a space for 10 or 20 cars for parking, and then he needs like a small office, but he would need a washroom, and he's willing to pay $2,000 per month, you know.
Okay, so let's just deal with this. That's great. So car dealership, 10 or 20 cars plus small office plus WC.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, all right. Let me see if I can find it here. Give me 1 second. I want to show you something.
Sure, take your time.
So I'll show you something that I think will be quite useful to know a bit about. So Cabby, I have helped develop probably about 20 auto dealerships in Ottawa, maybe more, quite a few.
Okay.
And I'll show you one. It's called the Canadian Auto Mall. Do you know it?
No,
Do you know it?
no, I don't.
All right. So this is these are two guys who have some. This is in Stittsville, on in the West End,
Mm-hmm.
and here it is now. I'll just move over here a little bit. Hang on. All right. So this is Canadian Auto Mall, and they sit on a site that I helped them buy. It's about 1 acre, and it has quite a nice building on it. And you can just see the isometric view here. So it's about 1 acre. I don't know how many cars it has. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, probably another 20. It probably can park about 50 cars on it. It has a service bay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is owned by two fellows, Raj and Ro. They came originally from India.
Mm.
And they started off with a gravel parking lot a bunch of cars parked on the gravel parking lot, and a building very similar to the ones that we've been talking about. It was, in fact, it wasn't even a shed or a workshop office. It was simply a trailer.
Okay.
So they had a trailer, and the trailer did have a bathroom in it, by the way, but they had the trailer on site, and just it was a gravel parking lot. I convinced them to buy this, and they used to be in the Mako collision business, which means they would repair cars, which
Yeah.
is not a very profitable business. I got them into this, and right from the get-go, they were selling between 20 and 25 used cars a month.
Okay.
And today it's probably closer to about 80 to 90 used cars a month, maybe even a little bit more. And they make about $5,000 to $6,000 on each used car that they sell.
Wow.
So if if you figure it out, just bear with me for a minute, if you figure it out, if they sell 80 cars and they make $5,000 a car, that's a gross profit. They're making about $400,000 a month gross profit on those cars.
A month?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you that today they no longer have a Mako collision franchise. They sold that sucker. This is all they do. It has made them very wealthy people. All right. So that's but they started literally with a trailer and some gravel, and they just graveled it, threw the trailer on there, put their sign up, Canadian Auto Mall, and they've done very well.
Interesting.
All right. So let's go back here into your, we did this, I guess, probably more than a month ago. So you can see here, Yemisi, what we were doing. So this is the property here. That's where the restaurant is. That's the home. This is kind of the, the area in the back over here. And what we were thinking is that there would be a number of small workshops in here. And Cabby and I both thought that there would be somebody who would need a yard. By a yard, I mean either a yard to store equipment or store inventory or vehicles. In this case, it would be vehicles. So how many square feet does he need, Cabby, to store 20 vehicles?
He didn't tell me, right? But I mean, he just said 10 to 20 vehicles. So me thinking about it, a typical parking space is about 150 square feet, right? So 150 square feet times 20 is about 3,000, maybe give another, I don't know, 1,000 square feet for driveways and things like that. So I'm looking at about 4,000 square feet, I mean, which I can give out.
Okay, so let's go small office workshop is 160 square feet, and we're going to multiply that by 2 for circulation space, right?
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm doing there, Cabby?
No.
Just have a little bit of space around it.
Oh, so 320 square feet per.
Yeah, it's very small. 300, so equals 320 square feet. Now, each parking space, including circulation space, is 300 square feet. All right.
Okay.
And if he needs, let's say he needs 15. Oops. So it means he needs
4,500.
Yeah, 4,500 square feet. All right. So his total area could be about 4,820 square feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what we charge for, contractor yards is anywhere from 15 cents to 20 cents per square foot per month. That's what we charge, plus HST. All right. So let's say we go with 20 cents. It means that for his area, he would pay 4820. I shouldn't be able to do this in my head. Yeah, he pays $964 per month plus HST. And for his workshop office, what were you thinking of charging for your workshops and offices?
$850.
850. 850 plus HST. So when we add those two numbers up,
It's about 2,000.
Yeah, so it's total equals 1,814 plus HST. So I would think that 2,000 a month is about right.
But my question is, so now, what's the opportunity cost? Because now I'm losing like a lot of land, right? As opposed to investing, $8,000 or $10,000 and getting $850, but then I can have multiple for the extra 4,500, 1,000 square feet, 4,500 square feet space that I'm giving to him to park his cars.
Yep.
It doesn't look, real profitable. Again, my whole goal is to invest
I get that, but think about, let's go back to the size of this thing. Can you remind me again how many square feet this whole thing is?
39,000 square feet.
So about 40,000, right?
Yeah.
So you're giving up about 40,000. You're giving up about 12% of your area to make $2,000 a month.
Okay.
I think that's okay, and I'll tell you what. If the three of us were walking down the street in Toronto, and we see two almost identical restaurants, one that is jam-packed and it's got a really good vibe, and the other one almost identical, is almost completely empty. Which one do we think is better?
Jam-packed.
Yeah, and so let me tell you about one of my buildings that where I did the small workshop thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So on one of my buildings, it's not a very big building. It's about 4,500 square feet of industrial space. I bought it. It was completely vacant, and it wasn't really fancy industrial space, I'll have to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I divided it up. I think I have 8 workshops in there now. I divided it up into 8 smaller workshops. So the average is probably about 400 or 500 square feet. And I didn't have any tenants.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, somebody showed up from my Kijiji ad or Facebook Marketplace ad. And it was a crazy Russian and a crazy Kurdish guy, 2 crazy guys,
Mm-hmm.
who had an import-export business. And they were selling, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Probably hot stuff, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that might have fallen off the back of a truck. Do you understand what I'm saying, Yemisi? Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't ask. One month they'd have, fat bikes, bikes with big tires. The next month they'd have, I don't know, sewing machines. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, I rented them one of my workshops for very little money, like $300 a month. Not 900, not 800, not 700, $300, almost nothing. And my wife said, "What the heck? Why would you do that?" I said, "Watch. I'm going to put one client in there in a very small workshop, and you watch, just by having some activity on the site, it will attract all kinds of others." And, within about 6 or 8 weeks, the entire building was full. On the other workshops, I was getting $700 a month, $1,000 a month. I got one workshop, I think it's over $2,000 or close to $2,000 a month. So when you tell me you have a client who would like maybe 4,000 square feet and will pay you $2,000 a month, if it was me, I would do that deal.
Okay.
And again, because all of a sudden you've got a little building there, and you've got a little fenced yard there, and people are coming and going, and there's some signage and there's some activity. It will draw everybody else, and you'll make more money on the others. And those guys, by the way, that crazy Russian and Kurdish, those 2 guys, crazy guys, they stayed with me for about 2 years.
Mhm.
And I never, I mean, maybe I raised the rent $20. And they finally moved out like 2 weeks ago, and they
Mhm.
left the place clean and neat, and they were super great guys, without inquiring too much about their business. And they were so successful, they have now bought their own warehouse, like a
Okay.
nice warehouse they bought on their own. But here's the thing: instead of renting that thing for $350 or whatever I was getting from these guys, I just re-rented it for $800 a month, right? So
Right.
it's not like and all of my leases, by the way, all of them are month to month.
Okay.
Right? People say, well, do you need me to sign a 2-year lease? No, month to month is fine. And the reason for that is if they turn out to be, not good tenants, I can kick them out.
Mhm.
It just, it's been a great success. That building is a great success. I bought it for $245,000. It was in terrible condition. And I spent a couple hundred grand fixing it up. So I probably got about 450,000 into it, but it was appraised last year at 1.2 million.
Nice.
Because, commercial appraisers, this, it's all about income, right?
Right.
So listen, that was just me trying to, convince you that I think, and don't forget, instead of having to have in that 4,000 square feet, instead of having, say, 6 or 8 or 10 little workshops, you only got one. So you only have to buy one to get them into business.
Okay.
I'm just
So
saying.
that's one. I'm also looking to rent out my kitchen. There's a lot of interest. My kitchen is 240 square feet.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there is again a ton of interest, but I think I'm asking for way too much. I'm asking for about $4,500. And then I might need to spend some money on equipment as well. I think if I bring down the price to about 3,500, I would have it taker, something like that. But right now, I'm just to feeling people out to see what I can. That's one. Then I'm just sharing some of the ideas that I've run out, and some of the responses I've gotten. The sitting area of the restaurant, I want to turn that into an event space.
That's cool.
It's 1,000 square feet upstairs. I put it out at $100 per hour, minimum 8-hour day. The two interesting. There's a lot of interest, especially for summer. People are looking for where to do parties and things like that. But I got some interesting offers from 2 churches who were willing to take. One was willing to take all Sundays, and then the other was willing to take all Saturdays. The concern that I have about that is for my own valuation, and this is a question for you, Bruce, would that type of lease, if I were to sign a lease with one party saying you have this all Sunday and then another party all Saturdays, can I still use that as a lease for valuation, or how would an appraiser look at that, or a bank?
Okay. We're going to come back to that. I just want to make sure that we go through these things one at a time.
Sure.
You ever heard this expression, you guys? The hurrier I go, the behinder I get. The hurrier I go, the behinder I get. It's kind of a corny old expression. So
Yeah.
it means that on each deal that you do, Kabi, and you too, Yemisi, you spend enough time, even if it's a very small deal, thinking it through, making sure you get everything as best you can, get everything right. So we should talk about the kitchen, and then we should talk about the churches, okay? Because you went through the kitchen a little fast for me.
Sure.
All right. So Kevin, just so you understand, I've been learning from my Asian clients who will go over even the smallest decisions, sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8 times, just to make sure, are we getting it right? Is it right for the tenant? Is it right for me? Have we thought through every angle? Something I've been learning, I mean, even at my age, I can learn a lot from my clients, right?
True.
So I'm telling you, so my Asian clients have taught me, go a little slower, all right? So
Okay.
if I go a little slower, there's a reason for it, all right? I just want to make
Sure.
sure that we understand it. There is something else I wanted to mention on the car dealership. Do you know what a percentage rent is?
Yeah, I've heard it on one of your
Yeah.
videos.
So one of the things that you could consider doing, I'm not saying you should do it, but one of the things you could do is you could ask the car guy, if you wanted to, give me $2,000 a month plus HST. I'll give you 4,000 or 4,500 square feet, and I'll provide you with, the office workshop.
Mhm.
But I would like to have 4% percentage rent. It means that if he sells 10 cars a month and he sells them for, I don't know, $6,000 or $8,000 each, you would get an extra you would get 4% of his sales every month. That's a lot of money.
His revenue or his profit?
No, 4% of his sales. And he may not agree, so you might say, well, I'll take 3%. But let's say he sells 10 cars for $8,000 each. That's $80,000. And even if you only got 3%, 3% of 80,000, last time I checked, is $2,400.
Right.
And he might do that. Even if you got 1%, it's still a hell of a lot of money.
Sure.
So quite a few of my, like on one of my properties in Canada, I have a guy who fixes cars and he sells cars. And I get a 4% percentage rent. I get far more from my percentage rent than I do from from the base rent.
Okay.
All right. And by the way, you could also do that with your commercial kitchen. All right.
So question around that on the percentage rent. How do you verify, what their sales are?
Right. So it's relatively easy to do. In your lease agreement, and by the way, when you're doing your first lease, I'm going to help you with that. All right.
Okay.
All right. So because I got lots of workshop leases on my computer, so I'll help you. It's part of your coaching. Right.
Yep.
I'm not acting as your realtor. I'm just acting as your coach. But I'll help you with the forms and stuff like that. So what I put in my percentage rent agreements is I put in that I'm entitled to audit them twice a year.
Okay.
And it's relatively simple to audit. If they have to show you their books twice a year, and you could make it more often than that, but I actually have it in my agreement I can do it twice a year, but I never do it more than once a year.
Okay.
So in order to cheat you as the landlord, they would have to have two sets of books, right? I mean, and some people will do that. That's what got Al Capone in Chicago finally incarcerated. It wasn't that he killed 500 people. It was that he was running two sets of books, and they caught him. And he actually went to jail, not for killing, but for falsifying his financial records. So I'm not saying that people wouldn't do that, but very few people will do that, at least in Canada. And the other way we audit is we have secret shoppers. I've only ever done once, but I had one of my friends who needed a used car anyway for his daughter. She turned, I think, 16 or 17. He went there and he actually bought a used car from this guy. And then when we did the audit, we checked whether it showed up in his books.
Okay.
So it's not that hard to do. And the other thing you can do is you simply count. You can just drive by and say, oh, look, he's got 10 cars there, and you take the license plates down. And then you check at the end of the month, and half of those are gone. You know how many cars he sold.
All right.
All right. So you can audit these guys, and secret shoppers is one of the things you can do. And then, of course, just doing a count will work as well.
Okay.
All right. So we've dealt with that, Kabi. Now let's talk about the commercial kitchen. Tell me again what you're planning there.
So it's about 240 square feet for the kitchen itself. I have maybe another 150 square feet in the basement, a walk-in cold room. The equipment might need, the burners, the fryers. I think they've seen, they've seen. I think they need changing. I put it up at 4,500. There's been a lot of people that have come to see it, but one of the things they've spoken about is if I was going to change the the equipment. Now a couple of people have come in, and after they've seen it, they said, you know what, I'll do 3,500. The highest I've gotten is about 3,700 or 4,000, something like that. but I haven't given it to anybody yet. You know, just because I want to make the place look a little bit nicer. It used to be a very old Chinese restaurant. One of the questions people have asked me is, well, I'm charging a lot per square foot, right? And so because it's 240 square feet, or let's say 300, maximum 400 square feet if you add the walk-in cold room, right? But then I'm also, my them is it's not just an office space I'm renting out to you, right? They have equipment that are also, you know, expensive, right? That I had to pay to get that. So that's why, you know, my price is that high. Some of them wanted to run like the ghost kitchen concepts. While I know that that's profitable, there are a couple of people that have, you know, spoken to me about wanting to have a shared kitchen space. From a lease perspective, which, you know, is what I am focusing on so that I can show that to an appraiser and get me my valuation. I don't know, would a ghost kitchen work if I were to run it myself? Because then I can easily get to that price point.
Yeah.
Or should I just rent it out to one person?
Yeah, I think that this kind of ties into the event center, right?
No, so they will be separate than the event center.
Yeah, but the event center needs a kitchen, right?
Not necessarily. You know, so for instance, if the event center were to be like for instance, the church guys, right? They don't need a kitchen, they just need a space.
Yeah, but most events, you know, even if it's just you know, keeping the food warm and keeping the drinks cold, you know, they do need some kind of kitchen space.
Well, then I can't rent out the kitchen then if I want to.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to think it through. I'm not saying you should answer that. I'm just trying to think it through together.
I mean, sorry to cut in. Even if it's not a kitchen per se, they definitely need an additional space because they'll need somewhere to like set up the coolers and some other things for the event. So yeah.
Well, I like where you're going. I love the idea of renting that commercial kitchen out. And you're right, it is expensive on a per square foot basis. I just calculated it out while you were talking, Kabi. It's over $100 a square foot, right?
Yeah.
But is there anybody out there you think would pay you $3,500 a month for that kitchen?
I think so. Or worst case scenario, I would do it. I mean, maybe have two people come in there.
Okay, so let's stop at that. I don't think you run the event center, and I don't think you run the commercial kitchen. You are way too busy, and Yemisi as well, to actually run that business, in my opinion. Running an event center is very, very, very time intensive endeavor. Running a commercial kitchen is really time intensive. You really have one hat that you should be wearing, I think, and that is you should be the landlord. That's it. And that's consuming enough of your time anyway. And Yemisi should be your property manager, not operate any of these businesses. You know, there you go. So, what I would be tempted to do is I would be tempted to rent the commercial kitchen, like you said, for $3,500 to $3,700 a month plus HST. And I would put in that lease that whoever runs the event center would be able to come to the commercial kitchen operator and for a fee and pay for any, you know, food and beverage services that they might require.
Okay.
And you know, if I was operating a commercial kitchen and then there was an event there, somebody was getting married and they wanted, you know, food and beverage for that, I think that's probably a good thing to offer to the kitchen, which is right there. So I like the idea of renting the commercial kitchen, but I would add a clause in there that they will provide food and beverage to the event center.
Okay, noted.
All right. And then on the event center, again, you should find an operator, somebody, you know, typically it would be a woman in her 40s who wants to run an event center, you know? Now, what do the churches have to do with this?
So the zoning also allows for worship centers, right? So when I put out the ad, you know, $100 per hour, you know, minimum of 8 hours, something like that. The two people, there were a lot of people that were interested. I wanted to do parties mostly on Fridays and Saturdays. and I think some on Sundays. But then these churches as well reached out and said, and one was even willing to pay a 6-month deposit, that they wanted just the Sundays, 8 hours. That would include their setting up time and, cleaning up time as well for their worships. And then another one wanted it on Saturdays, similarly, and they were willing to sign just for those days. So 4 Saturdays in a month and 4 Sundays in a month.
Yeah. Well, you know that there's actually 4.333 Saturdays in a month, right? You know that, right? And there are 4.333 Sundays every month. Gabby, get your calculator up. Get your calculator up. And take 52 weeks, 52, and divide it by 12, and tell me what you get.
Where's my calculator?
$52 divided by
4.33.
Yeah. So you know that some months will have 4 Sundays and some months will have 5.
Yeah.
Because there's 52 weeks a year. So when you write your lease up, Yemisi, you pay attention here. When you write your lease up, you got to make sure you're not charging for 4 Sundays. You're charging for 4.333 Sundays and 4.333 Saturdays, right?
Okay.
Okay. Just to be careful,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes a difference. So what I think you would do is you would find somebody who wants to run the event center, and you would provide them with 2 churches, as those are booked events. Do you understand?
Okay.
So if I was the operator, it was Firestone Center, the Firestone Center. I like the sound of that. If it was the Firestone Center, I would rent it from you. What are you going to rent the event center for? How big is the event center?
It's 1,000 square feet.
How many?
1,000 square feet, 40 by 25.
Yeah, that's good size. Okay, hang on. All right. So it's 1,000 square feet. And what were you thinking of renting it for?
I wasn't thinking, I was thinking of having just signing the leases, with these guys. So I hadn't thought that
So, well, typically for an event center, you would want, I think, gross, I think you'd want $32 per square foot. Gross.
Okay.
Plus HST, something like that, right? So that means.
Is that per year?
Yeah, per square foot per year. Maybe you could go a little bit higher. Let's go with $38, all right? Just for the hell of it, well, let's try that. Which means that you'd get $38,000 per year plus HST for the damn thing. So 38,000 divided by 12 is about $3,100 or $3,200 a month. I'm going to send you my notes after we finish, by the way.
Yeah.
3167. What are the churches offering you?
$8,000 per day for the 4. So if I consider the 4 weeks, so that's 4,000 per month per church. So that's 8,000.
Yeah. So I think my advice is bad. I think my idea is terrible.
But the question is, if I were to do just those 2, then can I, will their lease be in quote considered a valid lease, right? Because
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that the church rentals, all right, would be $1,000 a day?
Yeah.
For Saturdays, and $1,000 a day for the Sunday.
So I'm renting it out. They're 2 different churches, right?
Yep.
And I'm renting it out at $100 per hour, for a minimum of 8 hours. And then because there's a lot of demand for Saturdays and Sundays, I put it at 125, right? And there was still interest. So just to
$125 per hour, minimum of 8 hours, right?
Yes.
All right, so your solution is much better than mine. So let's say we go two churches. Well, hold on. We go $125 per hour times 8 times 2 times 4.333. Holy smokes. That's $8,666 per month plus HST.
Right.
That's a lot of money. That's much better than my solution. And what I like about this is that you can rent the space for the rest of the week, right?
Yes, I can see renting that space out for the rest of the week, though that's proving a little bit tricky. So it looks as though for event space, I have people that are willing to do parties on Fridays.
Yeah.
People that are willing, churches, I said, people that want to do parties as well, Saturdays and Sundays. But Mondays through Thursdays, I might not have a lot of takers. So
No, that's okay. But listen, I think if you rented the event center, you would get about $3,100 to $3,200 a month. If you rent it to the two churches, just the churches alone will provide over $8,000 a month. This is
yeah.
fantastic. Your solution is much better. And then the rest of the week, if you get some people who take it for $100 an hour, maybe minimum of 4 hours, great.
So the problem with this though is if we were to take it to an appraiser, they might consider it as running a business, and that's where I'm kind of stuck, as
Right.
opposed to it
So
being
I have a solution to.
okay.
But first, I have to take my cap off to you. Your solution was better than mine. So one for Cabby,
no,
0 for Bruce. One for
no, yeah,
Cabby, 0 for
Yemisi gets a lot of credit here because
oh, Yemisi, yeah, then it's 1 for you and 0 for Prof. Bruce. And that's really,
Wow.
oh, that's really good. No, I like your solution better. But I have a solution for the appraisal problem. Here's what I think you would do. What you would do is you would rent the event center to a company that you own
okay.
on a long-term lease, like 2 years or 3 years, something like that, at around $3,100 or $3,200 a month, which is really the fair market value for the space.
Okay.
That other company would then do the sublet. They would
Okay.
sublet to the churches. They would sublet to other people who needed it here and there. That is for the kind of money that you're talking about. That's worth doing. What I didn't want you to do is do a lot of work to make, instead of making, say, $3,100, $3,200, you do all the extra work and you make $3,500.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go from $3,100 or $3,200 a month to $8,000 or $10,000 a month, that's worthwhile.
Okay.
All right. And when you go to get it appraised, you show them the lease. You say, look, I've got it leased to the, let's see, the Yemi Cabby Event Center people, right? I mean, come up with a name. Better.
Yeah.
And the appraiser will look at that, and you don't hide the fact that you're involved on both sides, but they will accept that.
Okay.
So, for example, one of my buildings, I have, I think, a 12-unit apartment building, and 3 of those apartments are rented out, maybe 4. 4 of them are rented out on a short-term rental basis. Appraisers hate that.
Yeah.
And lenders hate that. So what we did was we took those 4 apartments and we leased it to my wife's company, at a typical rate of what a long-term rental would. And then she puts it up on Airbnb and she makes the difference, makes a pile of money.
Okay. But so, I mean, I can make the money there, right? But then that doesn't help me in terms of getting the valuation of the property, right?
Well,
So I
it
can
does,
still
it
use
does,
market
because
rent of
you're going to show $3,200 a month in the property, and if you say you make 8 or 10,000 a month, that other company will be making $5 or $6 or $7,000 a month. You can finance that company too.
Can you expatiate on that a bit?
All right, I'm going to put an equation in the chat box. See if you could figure it out. All right, you ready?
Sure.
What the hell? Where's the chat box? They moved everything around here. All right.
When does 1 equals 2?
Yeah, those two equations there. You might think that I didn't go to kindergarten, but I actually did.
Interesting.
So, believe it or not, this makes a lot of sense. I really like this. This is much better. You know, and this is the Asian thing that I was talking about. We go over and over and over it again. It keeps getting better.
Mhm.
So when does 1 equal 2? Or when does 1 plus 1 equal 3? A long time ago, I got into an argument with the Royal Bank of Canada. And we had a building downtown, it was a heritage place, I don't know, 24 stories or something like that. It was one of those towers downtown. And on 2 floors, floors 9 and 10, we turned those into mini offices. You know what mini offices are? Like co-working space.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like long benches. They were actual proper offices with nice furniture in it. And the Royal Bank of Canada said, we can't take any of the income from floors 9 and 10, and because we were negotiating for a new mortgage, and attributed that to the value of the building. So what the hell are you talking about? That little mini office business is a terrific business.
Yeah.
They said, well, just like you said a few minutes ago, Kabi, they said it's a separate business. We can't, it's not real estate.
Mhm.
So I said, well, geez, that's going to put my appraisal down by, you know, two floors out of 24 gone.
Yeah.
That's going to crunch my appraised value. And so there was a banker there, his name was Wayne Kendall, and he came to see me privately and he said, I got an idea, Bruce. Why don't you rent those 2 floors to another one of your companies at whatever the fair market value rate, so long-term lease for those 2
Mhm.
floors. And we can include that the long-term rental in your appraised value, and it'll go up. I said, you can do that? I said, isn't that like being deceptive? He said, no, it's as long as we disclose everything. No, it's just you rented it to another company you own, and that company then does the mini office thing. And
Mhm.
and that mini office thing was not a whole lot different than what we're talking about here. You know, back then, probably the rents were about $30 or $35 a square foot, and
Mhm.
those mini offices would rent for $80 or $85 a square foot, and that other company would make the difference, right? Exactly what we're
Yeah.
talking about here. And I thought it was a little bit like a shell game, you know, moving peas around underneath a shell, but it's not. I was a young guy, I didn't know any better. So what happened was that mini office company was called Terrace Corporate Centers Limited. Over the next 2 years, I put a president, that company had its own president, its own
Mhm.
management, and that company became like even more profitable because it had its own profit and loss statement. And so the guys who were running it, they knew what their profit and loss looked like, and they focused on making it a better operation, and they did. So we got our mortgage in place on the building, including floors 9 and 10. But then Terrace Corporate Centers Limited, TCCL had its own profit and loss statement. And 2 years later, we were able to get some financing on that, and we got quite a big line of credit, and you know, because it had a strong balance sheet, so
Yeah.
you could finance against that. And then when I was getting ready to do the Ottawa Senators, we started to sell some assets. We sold some buildings and some properties that we owned. And along came another company called, TCCL, TCC, I think it's called. And they made an offer on that business in the millions of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're a little event center business. Let's say, so just think it through for a minute. So your event center business, call it whatever, rents the space from your company that owns the property.
All right.
Over the next 2 years, it has some success. Maybe it's making $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
Okay.
And if you wanted to, you could finance against that, or you could sell the business to somebody who wants to run it.
Hmm.
And so you have lots of ways of making money with that.
Okay.
And it'll solve your financing problem, and it will also give you an opportunity to develop another profit center and another possible asset.
Okay.
And by the way, that company still exists today, and is very successful. It's I think it might even be across Canada now. It's called TCC,
Interesting.
right? So I'm gonna steal that. Hang on a sec. Like I said, I'm going to send you my notes afterwards. But we got to talk about financing before we run out of time. We've got time, but I want to make sure we talk about it. So just let me get my notes. I take very good notes, or at least I try to, Yemisi.
That's good.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're going to do this kind of win does 1 + 1 = 3, I have the leases as well for that, Cabby. So I can help you set that up.
All right.
All right. I think your solution was very good, Yemisi. Okay. All right. So did we lose Cabby? So Yemisi, while Cabby's doing whatever, tell me more about yourself.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Oh, so right now I am getting myself prepared. I mean, I'm doing the property management part of things, but I also have my other side that has to do with like being a solutions expert in technology. So yeah, looking to explore more areas. I mean, trying to diversify out of the property part of things and actually being a property owner myself. So
So you own some
yeah,
properties yourself?
not yet.
Not yet, but you're going to, right?
Yeah, yes.
That's
So
cool.
I'm just learning and all.
What kind of properties are you going to buy?
Well, following the lead.
What's that?
Following the lead.
Following my lead.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Well,
maybe
I'll
more
tell you
side
something.
of a rental. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you watch. Cabby is going to turn 1594 Cyrville into a gold mine.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I
he
know.
will. He will. You guys may know there's little Irish leprechauns. You know, there's little guys about this high, and they're supposed to leave a pot of gold at the end of every rainbow. Well,
Mhm.
when Cabby goes over the rainbow, he'll find a pot of gold at 1594 Cyrville. I really think so, Cabby. I think you know enough now to really make this a success.
Yep.
And then we're going to keep going at it. All right. So so we've talked about the event center. Now, before we get into the financing side of things, do you have anybody else interested?
There are a lot of people are interested as well in sheds. You know, I haven't really, because once you start having the conversations, I rented out one shed on one of my other properties.
Yeah.
So, you know, I still put up the ads and a lot of people that are interested, but they want to come and visit. So I'm trying to get 1 or 2 in there just to show people so that they can come in.
How big was the shed that you rented on the other property?
It's about 200 square feet, you know. It came with the building.
Yeah. And what did you get for it?
I rented it for $750 plus an additional $100 for power and all that kind of stuff.
So how much did you rent it for?
$850, that but includes power. Hydro.
And did you
Plus
remember to
HST.
charge HST on that?
Yes, plus HST.
Okay. Because remember, you know, HST is your friend, right?
Right.
Okay. So if you can rent a storage shed for $850 per month, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's better than I get. Now I really hate you. Like for my 200 square foot sheds, I probably get 250 or 300. I don't know. That must be a really nice shed, or you're a really good salesman, or both. But that's great. That is fantastic. All right. Okay, let's talk about let's talk about financing, all right? So I have a friend. He's a real brainiac. He's really smart. His name is ChatGPT. All right. So just before we started this morning, I asked ChatGPT to help me out. You know what this is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what I was going to suggest you do with your workshops is instead of adding, going back to Sean McCormick or anybody else to try and get another appraisal and get a higher, valuation and get a new mortgage, that takes forever. Why don't we put a chattel mortgage in place?
Okay.
Do you know what a chattel mortgage is?
No.
Okay, read that.
A chattel mortgage. You want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, it's just for the recording.
Yeah, a chattel mortgage is a type of loan arrangement where movable personal property known as chattel is used as a security for the loan. Chattels refer to tangible assets such as vehicles, equipment, or livestock rather than real estate or land. In a chattel mortgage, the borrower or mortgagor agrees to transfer ownership of the chattel to the lender as security for the loan. However, the borrower retains possession and use of the chattel during the loan term. Once the loan is fully repaid, ownership of the chattel is transferred back to the borrower. Chattel mortgages are commonly used for financing the purchase of vehicles and equipment for businesses as they offer advantages such as flexible loan terms, potential tax benefits, and lower interest rates compared to other forms of unsecured borrowing. Okay.
So let me ask you this question. How many boats or RVs, how many cars or trucks would be sold if there was no financing available?
Closer to zero?
Well, the rich guys would still be buying Lamborghinis, right?
Yeah.
And Maseratis. But the average person couldn't buy a nice boat. I mean, you could buy a canoe for a few $100 or a kayak, but if RVs can be really expensive today. I mean, it's people are buying $300,000 RVs, they're buying $500,000 boats, they're buying $100,000 F-150 Ford trucks, right?
Right.
Most of them are financed, and that financing is a chattel mortgage.
Okay.
Okay. So what I was hoping you would do is you would, and I'll show this. Here's the estimate you got from North Country Sheds. So you're buying a 10 by 16 mini garage for just under $8,000. I guess there's a delivery charge or something like that here, and then there's some HST. So just under $10,000 for this thing, right?
Yeah.
And what I was hoping we could do is we could find a supplier, a finance company that will finance this with a chattel mortgage. Like, for example, when you buy an RV, it comes with a VIN number, right? You know what a VIN number is, right?
Yeah.
That's a vehicle identification number. Same thing with a boat. Even if you buy a nice bicycle these days has a serial number, right? So as long as it has a serial number or a VIN number, so if you think about it, sea cans, Atco trailers, homemade RVs, tiny homes on trailers, rail cars, all of these have serial numbers. And as long as you have a serial number, you should be able to get a chattel mortgage. Now, I've talked to David McDonald about signing up with Canadian Financial so that people like you or me can get financing through Canadian Financial and through North Country Sheds. I don't think they've done that. And if you're buying one shed for $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000, it's not an issue. But if you're buying 4 of them or you're buying 40 of them, it gets quite expensive. And don't forget, that's just buying them. You haven't added any electricity to them. You haven't added any of the other things that we talked about earlier. So the other thing I did was, and this was the research that I was doing just before we got on this call, I was in fact doing it right up to the minute we did it, is I asked ChatGPT again, how can I register my backyard bunkie and get a serial number? So whether it's a backyard bunkie or a workshop, it's very similar, right? So to register your backyard bunkie and obtain a serial number, which is like a VIN number, you need to follow these instructions. Check if your backyard bunkie came with any paperwork or instructions regarding registration. Contact the manufacturer. If no instructions provided, contact the manufacturer directly. Provide information. The manufacturer may ask you to provide certain information about your bunkie, such as the model number, the purchase date, and possibly proof of purchase. And then you can get a serial number. Once you've you've provided all the necessary information, the manufacturer will assign a serial number to your backyard bunkie and register it in their system. Keep records. After you receive the serial number, make sure you keep it in a safe place along with all other documents. So guess what, Cabby? I did not realize that manufacturers can just issue their own serial numbers. It's like being able to issue license plates in Ontario. It's like counterfeiting, only it's legal. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So then I asked ChatGPT this. Who is authorized to issue serial numbers? And I just use as an example for school portables. In the context of school portables, the responsibility for issuing serial numbers and keeping track of them lies with the manufacturer or the supplier of the portable buildings. So if we could convince David McDonald to start issuing serial numbers from North Country Sheds with each one of these and like putting a little metal tag on it, saying serial number, blah, 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 and identifying themselves, you can finance it.
But wouldn't, I mean, yeah, so it's one for ChatGPT to say that, right? But would it not be beneficial to speak to Canadian Financing to say, hey, we want to finance this type of shares, we want to put serial numbers on them, would you be able to finance?
Yes, I talked to Canadian Financial and they said, no problem, we'll do that. And they financed one of the sheds for me, but only if the manufacturer agrees to sign up with Canadian Financial. And I don't think David has done that. I really like North Country Sheds, but they are not super keen on changing anything that they do. I'm not saying that they won't, but at least I don't think, I talked to them about it like 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah.
And so today, prompted by this discussion, this is a very important discussion, and I give you credit for this as well. It turns out that a manufacturer can issue serial numbers himself or herself, themselves, and keep track of them. And it's such a simple thing to do. I mean, assuming ChatGPT is correct.
Okay.
And if we can get them to issue a serial number with the 4 buildings that you're buying, we don't need Canadian Financial. There's another group that I work with. His name is Trevor. I think Trevor Harrychan. He's out in Alberta, and he works with, I think, either Bank of Nova Scotia or Royal Bank. I can't remember. Either the Bank of Nova Scotia or the Royal Bank, and they do chattel mortgages like crazy. And it's about, I think it's about an 8.99% interest rate, which sounds like a lot, but on $10,000 over a few years, it's not very much money. So it's a very good system. And so I did one with Trevor from another manufacturer on a different sort of building, and they have serial numbers. And so it was a snap, relatively speaking, to get it financed. But you need the serial number. And the reason for that is with chattel mortgages, the lender has to be able to repo or repossess, right? So let's say you and I were buddies and we bought an RV, you and your family can go off for a few months and I can go off with my family for a few months. The reason we can finance the RV is it has a VIN number, which is all a VIN number is a serial number, right?
Right.
So it means that if you and I stop paying the Bank of Nova Scotia, they can send out a repo guy and he actually, breaks into the RV when it's parked at your house or my house, and he steals it back for the company, right? They have to be able to repossess it. If it doesn't have a serial number, you can't repossess it. Same thing with a stolen bike, stolen car, stolen boat, whatever. So this is brand new for me today. And I'm really proud of myself, by the way, for doing all this research. But I really think it will help you if we can convince David to issue serial numbers.
Okay, so that would be to finance it and bring it onto the property, right? And then operate it, and then start paying it back. Now, what's the effect?
Hold on a second here. It's a little bit more complicated than I made out, because I've actually done one like this now.
Okay.
So I bought, in this case, I bought a tiny house for my youngest daughter's boyfriend.
Okay.
Okay, it's a little complicated. A real nice young man. I hope he marries my daughter. I've got Yemisi, I've got 3 daughters and 2 sons, and I got one last daughter to marry off. So he's a super awesome Englishman, and
Nice.
I hope he'll marry my daughter. She's a beautiful
Oh,
woman. So he needed a place to live. So I went out and I bought a tiny home from a company. And the tiny home, I don't know, it cost, I don't know, $75,000 or something like that. And I wanted them to put some improvements in. Okay. So they did. And they put in about $25,000 worth of improvements. My wife had said, well, we need some cupboards. We need this, we need that. We need a better fridge. We need a microwave, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it was about $100,000. And I asked the supplier of the tiny home, what is the retail price for this? Because they gave me, I think, a deal, not a huge deal, but they said, well, we retail these for $125,000. I said, great. So you ready? It's a little complicated. So they wrote me a bill of sale for $125,000, and I paid them $125,000 plus HST for that tiny house with all the improvements. Then I went to Trevor in Alberta, and I financed that tiny home through him with, I think it was the Bank of Nova Scotia. And they financed like 90% of it or 95%. So I got about $115,000 of financing on $125,000.
Right.
But wait, I had another deal, and this is all legal, which was to get a manufacturer's rebate from them of $25,000, because they said we'll give you a rebate because I've sold lots of things for them, and we'll give you a rebate of $25,000. So if you think about it, I bought the thing effectively for $100,000 and financed it for $115,000. So I ended up with $15,000 of extra cash on hand.
Right.
And I did it because I wanted to experiment. I could have paid for it in cash, but I didn't want to. I wanted to see if I could actually make this thing work, and it did. And then I had to pay HST. So I on the $125,000, I had to pay HST, which is, I don't know, 13%. So I don't know, $15,000 or $16,000 of HST. But when I rented it to the young man, I used a medium-term rental guest agreement, which required, it's a 1 to 6 month lease. So it's not even considered a lease. It's considered a guest agreement. And I had to charge him HST on his rent.
Right.
That means I can get, which I did, I can file my HST and I can get it back, right? So I got $15,000 of cash from this financing transaction, plus I got my, whatever it was, $16,000 or $17,000 of HST back because he's paying HST to me. It's a little bit complicated, but what I'm saying to you is that you buy these things for, say, $10,000, and you put in another, you put in some work, you add electrical, et cetera, to it, and some lighting and whatever else. Maybe it costs you $20,000 or $25,000. You can get a bill of sale which says this thing with a serial number cost me $25,000. You can finance probably 90% of that. So you finance not only the base unit, but also the improvements.
But how would so getting that bill of sale, because it's probably going to be another contractor, right, that will do like the improvement.
So you'll end up with basically you must have I bet you have a Nigerian friend who's a contractor.
Yeah.
I bet you have a few. They're all entrepreneurs. So hear me out. So you talk to, let's say your contractor friend, his name is John. Just make up a name. Is John much of a Nigerian name?
Yeah, very much so.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the Christians in Nigeria, right? There's lots of
Yeah.
Muslims there too. But anyway, so
Yeah.
John the contractor essentially buys the base unit from North Country Sheds for 10 grand. He fits it up for another 15,000, gives you the bill of sale for 25 grand,
Okay.
right? And then you finance against that. So then, you have to find about 10%. That's what I had to find, I think 10%. So you have to find $2,500 for each one of these sheds. That's the way to do it. And if you can rent them for, $850 a month, I mean, think about this. Let's just boot up a spreadsheet very quickly and just do some numbers. So I'll share my screen with you guys. Yemisi, are you bored yet?
No, I'm good. Just
All right.
been
So let's say
intrigued. Yeah.
the shed itself, we're just making up some numbers here, is $10,000. And then, John does the improvements. For say 15,000. Okay, so your total cost is this. And let's say your loan is say 90%,
Mhm.
and we'll say it's 9% interest, and it's amortized over, I don't know, probably 7 years. So your payments are, your rate is 9%, number of periods is 7 years. The present value is this, I don't know if this will work, times, times, what is it? C7. Oh, shit, sorry, I screwed up. Try again, I apologize. I used to be faster at this. I'll send you all this stuff so you have it.
Okay.
So we'll try again. The payment, the monthly payment is going to be, the rate is 9%, the number of periods, you're amortizing it over 7 years. Present value is C7, I guess, yeah, somehow, yeah, C7. Future value is 0. It's a Canadian loan, so it's a 0. And yeah, so I did it actually, okay. So this is your monthly payment on a loan like this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Per month. And your rent, what did we say we were going to rent these for? $850?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
All right. So, Kabi, what is your internal rate of return on something that looks like this?
Well, I have, let's say 2,500 in, and I'm making about 500 per month, so about 25%.
Let's figure it out. So the equity in it is equal to this minus that, right?
Right.
And your gross operating income is equal to this times 12, right?
Right.
And then your loan is equal to this times 12. So your profit, let's just say that your profit, all right, is equal to the sum of these two things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we'll just make that per year. So your ROI is equal to you're making $5,000, 5,000 divided by 2,500%. So you're making 229% on this thing. That is pretty freaking great.
Okay.
Do you understand why? I'll save this later. Do you understand why I like this kind of investment?
You can't find anything like this
Well, I
anywhere.
mean, you know, you could get 4 or 5% from your bank. So skill testing question, what's better, 4 or 5% or 229%?
229%.
I'd go with you on that, brother. All right. So what, you know, just because I need some help, because I'm getting a bit older now. Yemisi, I'm 72, just so you know. Right? So
Wow.
This one still fits.
you know, I know in Nigeria they say you respect your elders, right?
Yeah, we do.
I'm one of them. You got to have a sense of humor with me, okay? I love young people. You know, I like coaching and I enjoy your company. So
Yeah.
bear with me. So what I'm saying is it would really help if you could at least talk to David and see if he understands that if he were to issue serial numbers, which he can do. I'm going to send you all this stuff so you have it. And listen, if you get stuck with David, I'll talk to him with you, okay?
Okay.
But you tackle him first.
Sure, we'll do.
All right, because if he does this, if he understands it, I mean, it's taken me probably a year to understand it. The manufacturer's rebate thing, which your John the contractor can do for you.
Yeah.
Like what John can do is he can give you a bill of sale for buying this thing, fitting it up, and also what the retail value would be. So it's not bullshit; it's real. So he can
Okay.
give you, you know, maybe he could say it's if I were to do this for somebody else, it would cost $35,000 or $40,000, and he gives you a bill of sale of that, and you can finance against that 35 or 40,000, and then John can issue you a manufacturer's rebate, and that manufacturer's rebate, I didn't mention that, is not income for you, and it's not. It doesn't mean extra income for him because he can deduct that because it's a cost to him, but it's not income for you because it's a rebate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why when you buy, have you ever noticed? I never understood it before. When you buy an F-150 truck and they say, "Hey, listen, it's going to cost you 100 grand, but you're going to get $7,500 manufacturer's rebate from Ford," right? I never understood why they did that. They do it because it means that people like you and me can finance against the whole amount, the 100 grand.
Yeah.
And we can get $7,500 manufacturer's rebate. It's not considered income, so there's no income tax in our hands. And for Ford, it is an allowable deduction. So it is a fantastic thing. Now, I didn't invent anything here. I just reverse engineered this thing over the last year, so I understand it.
Yeah. Okay.
And if it's a little bit complicated, that's why we recorded this session. So you can go back if you wanted to and at least listen to a few minutes of this if you want.
Yeah.
But this is a very powerful financing technique. So I need you to talk to David and say, look, wait till you get the recording and wait till you get some of this stuff from ChatGPT, which I'll also send you. And you should say, look, you should be issuing serial numbers with each one of your buildings. It will help you, but will also really help people like you and me.
Okay. Now, I think I have 1 or 2 questions. So the first question that I have is now because I know if you could go back to the spreadsheet, right? It's about $5,000 per month for one. If I was trying to get to, you know, again, my target is about $50,000, you know, that kind of thing, right? So it means like I need to, $50,000 per month. You know, so yeah, you know, here I have 5,700, you know, per year. And I'm trying to get to 600,000. So I need if I had 20 of these, I would be making about 120,000 per year with this, you know, with this correct?
So right now, if you had, how many were you going to put on the site?
Well, I mean, if I do 300 per, 320 square feet,
Yep.
because
Yep.
I still I have one of the assets I have is land, right?
Yep.
I have about 25,000 square feet of land or 30,000 square feet of land that is just lying there fallow. So,
How many could you put?
I mean, I could put, so again, dividing, let's say 30,000 by 320, theoretically, I could put, divided by 320, I could put 93. Obviously, I'm not going to put 93, right?
So let's just say, number of sheds. Let's go with just an arbitrary number of 50, okay?
Mhm.
If we went with 50 of them, whoops, it means your ROI, sorry, your gross profit would be, would be this times that per year. I mean,
Okay.
if you did that, this would be a phenomenal success. I mean, if you did it, just bear with me for a minute. If you did it, and the market cap rate was, say, I don't know, 6.5%. Do you have any idea what this property would be worth? A
I don't know.
lot, right? You know how to calculate that, right?
Yep.
So we'll do it right here. So if we could do 50 of the damn things to make $286,000 at a 6.5% cap rate, that income is worth a ridiculous amount of money, worth like 4.4 million, just those workshops. And if you went with, like you were saying, like 80 of the damn things, so watch, when I change the 80, I'm going to hit the enter key. Watch what happens to your valuation down here. For $7 million. I'll go back to the 4. Right. So I mean, this model is very powerful, but I don't want you to get into trouble with the city of Ottawa. Let's start with 4, and let's get the commercial kitchen done. Let's get the automotive guy there. Let's get the event center there. Let's do that, and then we'll figure out where we're at that point.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say this.
Yeah. I think this I mean, this is something I can chase down. So you mentioned
so.
Go ahead.
No, I just think it's, I mean, I'll bet you if we showed this to 100 other people, nobody would be able to figure out what it is, what the hell we're actually doing.
Yeah, true.
This is, this will be really something. I mean, it'll be a show project, believe it or not, when it's finished. Even if
I can pay off my mortgage
even if Yemisi doesn't like our bathrooms.
Yeah.
I just got to save this, Cabby. All right, so I'm going to save this here. And I'll make sure you get it. It's not March, April. I'm telling you, if this is a success, the way that you and I think it will be, Cabby, you're going to do more properties like this.
True.
This would be really worth doing. Don't forget, that's $4.4 million just for the workshops. It doesn't include the building. It doesn't include the house.
But and that's my problem, right? So when they're doing the valuation, if an appraiser were to come in, right, they either do the income approach or they do per square foot per land. Based on my experience, I don't know. Is there a way for them to combine, right? Because now I'm putting these sheds in, and generating revenue. Unless I'm generating revenue from the buildings themselves, right, to add to this, I don't think that they would consider that's one of the.
Yeah, I think we will definitely struggle on the appraisal. I have a couple of appraisers that I use, mostly a young woman, her name's Rebecca Simon, and her father, Mike Simon, who understand what it is that people like you and me are doing.
Mm.
So what we have to do is we have to shop for the right appraiser. Because if we showed what we've just done, if we showed this to, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, okay, just making sure. If we show what we've done over the last 2 hours to most appraisers, you're right, they would struggle to understand it. But Rebecca and Michael, they look at your net operating income, whether it's from workshops or parking lot, contractor yards, from the commercial kitchen, from the event center, from the house. They will put all the income together, and then they will divide it by what they consider a market cap rate, and they will give you, I think, a fair appraisal. But not every appraiser will do that. We'll have to go shopping.
So appraisers are gatekeepers. I've heard you say that a lot of times, right?
Yep.
But ultimately, they're gatekeepers to banks who, leverage them.
Mhm.
What sort of institutions or banks have you used in the past to finance, this type of sheds as well?
So, well, the sheds will, it could be the Bank of Nova Scotia or the Royal Bank of Canada, as long as we can get North Country Sheds to play ball. And we're going to use Trevor Harry Chan out in Alberta, because it's too complicated for you and me to go knocking on the door of a bank. I had to pay Trevor some amount of money for work he did, but it was a trivial amount of money. Maybe it was $1,000, but the work he does is fantastic, at least in my experience. So, so using a mortgage broker, one that like Trevor, who understands what the hell it is we're doing, and using an appraiser like, Mike and his daughter Rebecca, I think that really helps us.
Okay.
All right. So for you, the takeaway right now is to take that quote that we have from North Country Sheds, talk to David. Maybe you could call him.
Yeah.
Talk to David and make sure it includes, spray foam insulation underneath.
Right.
If it doesn't, it's going to be an additional cost, but you need that.
Okay.
And then talk to your contractor friend and see what he will charge you to add the electrical, to spray foam them, to add some lighting, and to put in a reverse cycle heat pump.
Okay.
And also ask him if he'll play ball with you to give you a retail price and then a manufacturer's rebate. So you've got some homework to do too, okay?
Okay.
I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
And I really enjoyed meeting Yemisi. I did.
So one question, Bruce, before I let you go. Is the overhead door an ultimate, is it a requirement? Because that's one of the points that David and I were conversing. Or can you use like the barn doors that open out for the sheds?
Can you say that again?
The overhead doors for the sheds or the barn doors, is it, in your experience, is it a deal breaker?
For the sheds that I've been buying from him, I have been asking for insulated overhead doors.
Okay.
Because we're going to heat and cool these things, right? Because you can't work in Ottawa for 6 months a year at -20.
Yeah.
So if your overhead door is not insulated, but the overhead door is fantastic. It just makes things so much easier. I mean, you could use the barn doors, it's cheaper, but I would go with the overhead door, and I would make sure that it's an insulated door. So you need, I'm glad you brought that up. You need the underfloor spray foam insulation, and if you're going to go with the overhead door, that absolutely has to be insulated.
Insulated. All right.
I gotta go. It was great to meet you, Yemisi. I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much, Bruce.
Bye, guys.
I'll call you.
Take care. Sure.
It was really great.
Thank you.
Really good job today.